I am standing in a small room, just off the main hall of the venue, wearing a wedding dress I have owned for 6 months, holding a bouquet of white and pale yellow flowers that my hands picked out on a Tuesday morning when everything still felt simple and good. My veil is pinned just right. My shoes fit perfectly. My heart is so full it actually hurts in a good way. The kind of hurt that says this moment is real, and it is finally here. Then Gordon steps in front of the doorway like a wall. Gordon Carlyle, my stepfather. The man my mother married when I was 19 years old. He is wearing a pressed gray suit and a look on his face that I have seen before. The look he uses when he has already decided something and is waiting for you to catch up. He holds out one arm like a bouncer blocking a door. "Parents only," he says. He says it loud enough for my 2 bridesmaids to hear. Loud enough for the woman arranging flowers near the window to look up. He says it with the calm confidence of a man who believes he has already won whatever argument is about to happen. Then he turns slightly and points past me, past my shoulder, past my veil, and points directly at my father, who is standing just a few feet away, his tie a little crooked the way it always is, his eyes shining with everything a father feels on a day like this. "Not you," Gordon says. "My father's name is Ray. He raised me. He made my lunches and coached my soccer team and sat with me through 2 broken hearts before this one finally got it right. And he is being pointed at like a stranger." My stomach drops straight through the floor. Gordon turns to the wedding planner and says, "Calm as a schedule. Follow the list I gave you. My name is Amelia Carlisle. I am 47 years old, and I want you to understand something about this wedding before I explain what happened at it. This is not my first marriage. My first marriage ended 11 years ago after a slow, quiet falling apart. It didn't end with shouting. It ended with 2 people who had become strangers, finally admitting it out loud. I spent years putting myself back together. Years learning how to be alone without being lonely. Years deciding what I actually wanted before I let myself want it. Caleb came along when I had stopped looking. We met through a mutual friend at a dinner party I almost didn't attend. He's 51, steady, honest, funny in a quiet way that sneaks up on you. We dated for 2 years before he proposed, then spent 18 months engaged before this wedding. I was careful. I was deliberate. I wanted this day to mean something real. My father, Ray, is 69 years old. He has a bad knee and a good heart, and a laugh that fills whatever room he walks into. When my mother, Catherine, worked double shifts at the hospital, it was my dad who made dinner and helped with homework and showed up to every school play. He is the reason I believe that steady, patient love is the most powerful kind there is. My mother remarried when I was 19. Gordon was charming at first, confident. He had opinions about everything and delivered them like facts. I told myself that was just his personality. I told myself a lot of things over the years that I now understand were simply ways of making peace with something uncomfortable. Now I am 47 years old, standing in a wedding dress, watching him erase my father from my most important day. My mother is standing 3 feet away. She will not meet my eyes. She looks at the floor and says in a voice barely above a breath, "Please don't start something." Gordon does not wait for my reaction. He turns and takes my mother's arm like she is something he owns and leads her down the hallway. She walks with him without looking back at me. Her shoulders are tight, and her chin is up the way it gets when she's trying hard to hold herself together. My father takes 1 step forward and opens his mouth to speak. The wedding planner, Jolie, steps between them immediately. Jolie is a small woman in her early 40s with short, natural hair and a tablet tucked under one arm at all times. She has been professional and warm through every meeting over the past year. Right now, she looks genuinely distressed. Her face tight, her eyes apologetic. "I'm so sorry, sir," she says to my dad in a low, careful voice. "I was instructed." She stops herself, presses her lips together, looks at me. My dad lifts both hands slightly, the way he does when he is trying not to make a scene. He takes a half step back. He's the most patient man I have ever known, and that patience right now is breaking my heart. I feel something rise in my chest that is hot and bitter and familiar. Humiliation. Not for myself, for him. My father is standing in the hallway of my wedding venue, being managed like an uninvited guest who wandered in off the street. My fiancé Caleb appears at my shoulder. He must have heard the silence shift because he moves toward me the way he always does when something is wrong, quickly, quietly, one hand resting at the small of my back. "What's going on?" he asks, looking between me and my dad and the retreating figure of Gordon down the hall. Jolie catches my eye with a look I cannot fully read. And then Gordon, without turning around, without slowing his pace, says 4 words over his shoulder, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Your bride knows." I do not know. That is the honest truth of it. I did not plan for Gordon to do this. I did not agree to it or secretly understand it was coming. If anything, I spent the better part of this past year carefully navigating family dynamics, so that today would feel like a celebration for everyone I love. And that list absolutely includes my father. I hand my bouquet to Tori and pull my mother into a small alcove off the main hallway. Tori, who has known me for 22 years and knows exactly when to give me space, takes the flowers without a word. My mother looks small suddenly. She is wearing a beautiful dusty rose dress, and her hair is pinned up perfectly. But she looks smaller than I have ever seen her look. I keep my voice very calm, because I know from years of experience that calm is the only language that actually reaches her when Gordon has his hands on a situation. "Did you tell him to do this?" I ask. She does not answer right away. Instead, she reaches up and touches my veil, adjusting it slightly, the way she might straighten a picture frame when larger things are falling apart around her. Then she says it. "He's sensitive about titles." I hear those words. I let them land. I feel every layer of what they mean and what they refuse to say. Sensitive about titles. As if my father's place in my life is a title someone assigned and someone else can take back. As if 28 years of raising me, showing up for me, and loving me with everything he had is just a label on a name tag that makes Gordon uncomfortable. My throat tightens. Then my dad's voice comes around the corner. Careful and quiet. "Sweetheart, your planner won't even let me into the front row." I leave my mother standing in the alcove and go find Jolie. She is near the seating chart display at the far end of the entrance corridor, making small adjustments to name cards with the focused energy of someone who would rather be doing anything other than what she is about to be asked to explain. I walk up beside her and keep my voice the same way I kept it with my mother. Even, quiet. No trembling edge, not because I am not angry. I am angry. I am angrier than I have been in a very long time. But I have learned that the moment my voice shakes is the moment people stop hearing what I'm saying and start managing my feelings instead. "Jolie," I say, "who gave you the parents-only rule?" She stops adjusting the name card. She sets it flat on the table and takes a slow breath. I can see the conflict moving across her face. She is a professional with clients to protect and a business to think about. She also has, I am realizing, a conscience that has been doing heavy lifting today. She swallows and says, "Your stepfather," a pause, "and your mother signed off." The words drop quietly into the space between us. I nod once. "Signed off on what exactly? The front row change? Walking me down the aisle?" Jolie picks up her tablet and opens a folder. Not the main event schedule, but something separate. A document I have never seen before. She tilts the screen toward me slightly, the way someone offers something they aren't entirely sure they should be giving you. "It wasn't just the seating," she says, her voice dropping lower. She pauses, glancing toward the hallway where Gordon disappeared. "It was family access. Who gets backstage? Who goes where? Who can speak?" She watches my face carefully. The list wasn't just about seating. It covered everything. I ask Jolie to show me the full document. She hesitates for exactly 3 seconds. Then she reaches into the back of her tablet case and pulls out a folded packet of printed pages. She holds them for a moment like she is weighing something, and then she places them in my hand. The first page is titled in bold capital letters, "Family List, Approved." It is dated 3 weeks ago. There are sections, clear, organized sections with headings, the kind of formatting you use when you have thought this through carefully and want to make sure nothing gets missed. Under the section labeled Parents, 2 names appear. Catherine Carlisle, Gordon Carlisle, that is all. I scroll to the next section with my eyes. Under Immediate Family, Caleb's name, a few of his relatives. Then a section below that labeled Other Guests. My father's name is there. Ray Carlisle, listed between a college friend of Caleb's and a cousin who lives 2 states away. Other guests. My father, who paid for my wedding dress, who drove 4 hours to attend every dress fitting, who wrote me a card that I have already read 6 times and cried every single time, is listed under Other Guests. My stomach flips slowly, the way it does when something your brain already understood emotionally finally becomes undeniable fact right in front of your eyes. Because this is not a misunderstanding. This is not Gordon being thoughtless or impulsive. This is organized. This is a document with a title and a date and sections and approved formatting. This was planned, it was printed, it was handed to my wedding planner like a business brief. I turned to the second page. At the bottom, separated by a thin line from the rest of the text, there is a note in slightly smaller font. It reads, "Do not allow unscheduled speeches." I read it twice. I look at Jolie. She looks back at me without saying a word. I stand there with those pages in my hand, and I let the full weight of what I'm holding settle over me. This is not just a front-row reassignment. This is not one stubborn man having a bad morning. This is a plan. A quiet, detailed, pre-arranged plan to rewrite this entire day from the inside. To make sure that when the photos are developed and the memories are told and the story of my wedding gets passed down through the years, my father is nowhere in it. Not at the front, not walking me down the aisle, not giving a toast, not dancing with me. Because if he is absent from those moments, he is absent from the version of my life that Gordon gets to stand inside and claim as his own. Caleb appears at my side. I don't know when he moved close. He does that, moves without sound when something needs attention. He looks at my face first. Then he looks at the pages in my hand. I pass them to him without speaking. He reads. His jaw goes slowly tight. He reads the line about other guests, and I watch his expression shift from confusion to understanding to something steady and firm. He says, "Do you want me to stop the ceremony?" I feel my throat burn. Not from sadness, but from the specific kind of grief that comes when a problem you spent years quietly tolerating finally becomes too large and too public to ignore. "No," I say. "I want to understand why my mother let this happen." Caleb gives a single nod and keeps the pages. Then Tori appears from around the corner with my bouquet pressed against her chest and a look on her face that means something new has gone wrong. She leans in close and whispers, "Amelia, Gordon just went to the DJ booth. He told him not to take song requests from your side of the family." I walk to where Gordon is standing near the venue entrance, talking to one of the venue staff with the relaxed ease of a man who believes this day is running exactly according to his design. I wait until the staff member moves away. Then I look at Gordon directly and I ask him, in the calmest voice I have, to explain the list he gave my planner. Gordon tilts his head the way he does when he thinks you're being unreasonable but wants to appear patient about it. He has a particular smile for moments like this. Not warm, but controlled. The smile of someone who has rehearsed the conversation they think you're about to have. "I paid for this wedding," he says. I feel the cold shock of those words move through me, because they are delivered so smoothly, like they settle the matter. Like money is the same as authority. Like writing a check transforms someone's wedding day into their own personal production. Except, I pause. My mind runs backward through the past 8 months of deposits and contracts and payments. Caleb and I paid the venue deposit in February. We paid the photographer's retainer in March. I paid the catering company 50% upfront in April. My father paid for my dress in full and for the flowers with a check he handed me in person. Gordon's name, Gordon's card, Gordon's contribution. I search my memory and I come up empty. "What exactly did you pay for?" I ask him quietly. He waves one hand like the details are beneath the question. "The rest of it, the pieces you couldn't cover," which means I make sure it's done properly. Before I can respond, my mother appears at his elbow. She puts her hand on my arm and leans close and whispers the words with the compressed urgency of someone who has delivered this warning before. "He'll cancel everything if you embarrass him. The music, the dinner, all of it." I stand there for a moment after my mother whispers that warning, and I let it travel all the way through me. He'll cancel everything. That is the leash. That is the architecture of the whole thing, laid out in one sentence. It is not about titles or roles or front row seating. It is about money as a weapon. It is about making sure that the person who controls the finances controls the behavior of everyone inside that financial reach. My mother has been living inside that reach for almost 30 years, and I have been watching it, brushing it aside, rationalizing it, calling it his personality, calling it insecurity, calling it something manageable, for almost as long. I take one slow breath, then I go back to Jolie. I ask her calmly and directly for every payment record connected to this wedding. Every contract, every receipt, every deposit confirmation. She looks at me with the expression of someone who has been hoping someone would ask this question and also slightly afraid of what happens once it gets asked. She says she can show me the full contract folder. She has it in her bag, the official folder with all signed agreements and transaction records. She always carries it on event day. She pulls it out. It is a thick, tabbed folder, professional and organized. She opens it to the first section, the main venue and coordination contract, and I look at the signature line at the bottom. I expect to see Gordon's signature. Gordon who told me he paid. Gordon who said he covered the rest. Gordon who is currently standing near the entrance telling my wedding planner how to run my day. I look at the signature on the bottom of the contract. I read it carefully. Then I read it again. It is not Gordon's signature. My mother's name is on every single agreement in that folder. Not Gordon. Not a joint account. Not a shared signature. Not his name alongside hers. Catherine Carlisle. Just Catherine. Alone on every contract, every addendum, every payment confirmation. I stand there with the open folder in my hands and I feel something in me go very quiet and very hard. He didn't pay for this wedding. He made my mother pay for it. He took her money she earned, from an account she has access to because she is his wife, and he used it to purchase something he then claimed as his own. He transformed her financial resources into his personal authority, and then stood in this hallway this morning and used that manufactured authority to control everything and everyone within reach of it, including her. I look at Catherine, who is still standing nearby, watching me with that careful, tight expression. And I feel something that surprises me. Not anger, exactly. Something sadder and more complicated than anger. Because this is not just about today. This is the story of their whole marriage inside one folder. Her name, her resources, his authority. Her signature, his power. I hand the folder back to Jolie. Jolie, very quietly, turns to a tabbed section near the back. She does not say anything. She simply opens the folder to a page I have not seen before and places it flat on the table in front of me. The page is titled in the same bold capital font as the family list, Family Role Assignments. It is an addendum, added 3 weeks ago. Signed by Catherine. Formatted in the same clean, deliberate style as everything else Gordon touches when he wants something to look official and inevitable. I look at the first line, then the second. Then I stop being able to breathe normally. I read every line on that addendum page slowly, the way you read something when part of you is hoping you misread the first time and the rest of you already knows you didn't. The first line reads, Stepfather escorts bride. The second line reads, Mother seated front row. The third line reads, Father of bride seated row 4. I stop there for a moment. Row 4. Not the back of the room, not removed entirely, just far enough to be invisible from the photos. Far enough to communicate clearly that he is present as a courtesy, not as a parent. Far enough to make sure that no one looking at the pictures later would ever ask who the man in the front row was. I read the fourth line, No father-daughter dance. I set the page down on the table. The room is still making normal sounds around me. Heels clicking on tile, the low murmur of guests arriving, the soft movement of the string quartet warming up in the ceremony hall. Everything around me is continuing as scheduled. But inside my chest, there's a very specific kind of silence. The silence that falls over you when something abstract you have been sensing for years becomes completely, undeniably concrete. This is not insecurity. This is not sensitivity about titles. This is a sustained, organized effort to humiliate my father. Not to remove him entirely, that would be too obvious, too easy to call out, but to position him precisely far enough back and far enough down that his presence communicates something specific. You do not matter here. You are tolerated. You are row 4. Caleb stands beside me. He reads the page. He's quiet for a long moment. Then he says very softly, "If he can do this today, what has he been doing to you for years?" That question opens a door in my memory that I have been very carefully keeping closed for a very long time. I remember the Christmas when my dad drove 3 hours through winter weather to have dinner with us, and Gordon spent the entire evening making quiet jokes about my father's job that were technically just jokes if you didn't know the tone behind them. I remember being told I should call Gordon Dad when I was 21, and how the pressure of that suggestion sat on me for months before I quietly let it fade without ever fully complying. I remember the way Gordon would go cold and silent for days after I visited my father, and how I learned without being told that keeping those visits quiet was easier than managing what came afterward. I excused it. Every single time. I told myself it was insecurity. I told myself it was just how he was. I told myself that men who feel threatened by the fathers of their stepchildren are wounded in ways that deserve patience, not confrontation. But looking at that addendum page now, I understand that what I was practicing all those years was not patience at all. It was accommodation. And there's a real and very important difference between those two things. Patient people wait for others to grow. Accommodating people shrink themselves to make others comfortable. I have been making myself smaller around Gordon Carlyle for 28 years. I have been folding away my own history, my own instincts, my own father, one quiet compromise at a time. Not anymore. I pick up my bouquet, I straighten my back, and then Tori appears in the doorway with her face tight and her eyes urgent, and she says in a voice that makes my chest crack straight down the middle, "Amelia, your dad is leaving. He's heading for the back garden. He's trying not to cry." I move fast. I don't run because you cannot run in a wedding dress without consequences. But I move with purpose through the side corridor that leads to the back of the venue where the garden archway sits covered in ivy and white roses. I push open the heavy side door, and the afternoon light hits me all at once, warm and gold and completely indifferent to everything happening inside that building. My father is standing beside the garden arch with his back half turned. He has his hands in his jacket pockets, and his shoulders are carrying the particular heaviness of a man who is trying very hard to hold something in. His tie is still crooked. I notice that. I notice it the way you notice small, familiar things when you are afraid. "Dad," I say. He turns around slowly. His eyes are red at the edges, not wet yet. He is fighting it with everything he has. "Don't leave." I say, "Not today." He tries to give me a small smile, the kind that is doing the work of about 6 different emotions at once. "It's your day, sweetheart," he says. "I don't want to cause you trouble." I walk straight to him. I take both his hands in mine. I look at his face. The face that was the first one I remember making me feel safe. The face that showed up without fail for every moment that mattered in my life. "You are not trouble," I say. "You are my parent. You are my parent, and you are not going anywhere." His hands tighten around mine. He opens his mouth to say something, and then Gordon's voice comes from behind me, cutting across the garden with the authority of a man who has never once in his life allowed a moment to simply belong to someone else. "Amelia," he says, "enough." I do not turn around immediately. I keep holding my father's hands for one more deliberate second because I want him, and Gordon, to understand exactly whose moment this is. Then I turn slowly and face my stepfather in the afternoon light with my wedding dress around me, and everything I have figured out in the last 40 minutes settled like armor across my shoulders. Gordon is standing at the garden door with his jacket straightened, and his expression controlled. He tilts his head the way he does when he believes he is about to deliver a consequence that will end the discussion. "You need to come inside and do this the right way," he says. "Or I pull the vendors. No music, no hot dinner, no bar. You can explain to 200 guests why your wedding fell apart because you couldn't follow a simple plan." I hear the words. I feel them hit the way he intends them to hit. Then I think about one thing Jolie said. I turn back toward the door and call her name. She appears at the entrance within seconds, tablet in hand, carrying the expression of someone who has been listening carefully and is now being asked to step forward. Jolie, I say clearly, who has the legal authority to cancel the contracts for today's event? Jolie does not look at Gordon. She looks at me. She answers in a steady voice. Only the account holder can authorize a cancellation without forfeiting the deposits, which would be in the tens of thousands of dollars. She pauses. The account holder on every contract is your mother. I turn to look at Catherine, who has appeared in the doorway behind Gordon. She has been listening. I watch her face move through fear, recognition, something that looks almost like a rival, and then go very still. Her mouth opens slightly, as if she is only now understanding the weight of her own name on all those papers. I pull my mother away from the doorway and into the small side room off the garden corridor. Gordon takes one step to follow us, and Caleb steps smoothly into the space between them. Not aggressively, just present, solid, immovable. Gordon stops. The room is used for storage, extra chairs and folded tablecloths and stacked centerpiece boxes. It is not a graceful space for a conversation like this, but it is private. Catherine stands with her arms crossed over her chest, the way she stands when she is cold or scared or both. The dusty rose of her dress makes her look pale right now. I ask her directly, "Did you agree to the list, the family roles, the seating, all of it?" She takes a slow breath. Gordon insisted. He said he was the husband. He said your father lost the right when your parents divorced. But did you agree? I ask again. The silence that follows is its own answer. Then she says it anyway. I agreed because it was easier. Easier. I feel those words land the way a slap lands. Sharp and clarifying. Easier for who, I think. Easier for Gordon, certainly. And easier for my mother to live the version of her life where she doesn't have to choose between the man she married and the daughter she raised, so she makes a quiet preemptive choice in the dark 3 weeks before the wedding and tells herself it was practical. I am not going to scream at my mother on my wedding day. I refuse to do that. But I hold her eyes and I wait, and in that pause she adds something. Soft, almost reluctant, like a stone she has been carrying for a while and finally needs to set down. There's something you don't know, she says, about the guest list, about who Gordon removed. She tells me quickly, because we don't have much time, and I think she knows that once this is out, things are going to move fast. Gordon didn't just rearrange the front row. He went into the original guest list, the one Caleb and I spent 3 evenings putting together at our kitchen table, and quietly had my mother remove people he considered to be on my father's side. My Aunt Bridget, who has known me since I was born. 2 cousins I grew up with at holiday dinners, old family friends who came to my first wedding. People who have known my father for decades and would have watched him get sidelined today and said something about it. He cleared the room of witnesses. He made sure that when he repositioned my father to row 4, there would be no one around who cared enough or felt close enough to push back. I feel rage rise in my chest, hot and clean and very clear. Not messy, not panicked, just the very pure, uncomplicated feeling you get when you understand that someone looked at something you built with love and chose to take it apart for their own ego. I am done giving this man patience that he spent 30 years mistaking for permission. Tori appears at the doorway and holds up her phone with a look on her face that says she is sorry to be the one bringing this. I take the phone and read the screen. It is a text message from Gordon to Jolie, sent 4 days ago. I read it once, then I read it again to make sure I am reading it correctly. It says, word for word, if her dad gets to the mic, shut it off. My father's voice. Pre-silenced. 4 days before the ceremony. I hand the phone back to Tori. I need a microphone, I say. I go back to Jolie with the same calm I have been carrying all morning. I find her near the entrance to the ceremony hall, where guests are filing into their seats. The string quartet has moved from warm-up into the soft pre-ceremony music. The light through the high windows is golden and perfect. Everything looks exactly the way I imagined it would look when I was planning this day. I step beside Jolie and say quietly, I need to address the guests before the ceremony begins. I'd like to use the ceremony microphone. I see the fear move through her eyes. She knows what Gordon said in that text. She knows what she was instructed to do. I put a hand gently on her arm. I'm not going to insult anyone, I say. I'm not going to make a scene. I'm going to clarify something that affects this ceremony and the people I love. That's all. She looks at me for a long moment. Then she says, "The mic is on the left side of the altar. The sound tech controls it from the booth in the back." I nod and thank her. Caleb finds me as I turn toward the hall entrance. He reads my face the way he always does and doesn't ask what I'm planning. He just slides his hand into mine and squeezes once. "Whatever you do," he says, "I'm with you." I look at him, and I feel the full weight of why I'm marrying this man. I push open the door. Gordon is standing at the far end of the aisle, positioned at the spot where the stepfather who paid for nothing decided he would escort the bride. He sees me. His eyes go narrow. He takes 2 steps in my direction. And then Reed, Caleb's best man, a quiet and quietly enormous person who has said approximately 12 words all morning, steps smoothly between us and plants himself in the space like furniture. "Let her through," Reed says. The music is playing when I walk into the ceremony hall. 200 people rise to their feet the way guests do, out of habit and love and the particular rush of feeling that comes with the beginning of a wedding ceremony. I can see the faces nearest the aisle, smiling, expectant, some already emotional in the way that wedding guests get before a word has even been spoken. I am not walking toward Gordon. I turn and walk toward my father, who is standing near the end of the 4th row in his crooked tie, looking at me with an expression I will never fully be able to describe. It is love and loss and confusion and hope all at once. The face of a man who has been told he doesn't belong at the center of something he helped build for 47 years. The room shifts. People notice. The guests near the front tilt their heads. The murmuring starts, not unkind, just puzzled, the specific sound a room makes when the expected story suddenly takes a different shape. My mother, seated in the front row, goes pale. Gordon is still near the altar entrance. I can feel him watching. I can feel the whole weight of his calculation from across the room. He has spent 3 weeks arranging this moment precisely, and it is rearranging itself in front of 200 people. He steps toward the aisle. He says, barely above a whisper, in the voice he uses when he wants to appear calm, "Don't." I walk to my father's row. I take his hand. He looks at me like he isn't sure what is happening. I reach into the small internal pocket of my dress where I put the folded printed pages that Jolie handed me an hour ago. I pull them out. I lift them where the front rows can see them. The sound technician in the back of the room is watching me with uncertain eyes. Jolie appears at the side entrance and gives him a small, firm nod. He adjusts his board. The ceremony microphone on the left side of the altar picks up my voice clearly when I speak. I keep my voice completely level. "Before this ceremony begins," I say, "I need to clarify something for the people I love who are in this room." 200 people go very quiet. This morning, I was told that the ceremony would begin with parents only, and that my father, who raised me, would not be considered one of those parents. I pause and let that land fully. I was handed this. I hold up the pages. This is the family list that was given to my wedding planner without my knowledge and without my consent. A few people near the front lean forward slightly. "I want to read you one line," I say. I open the pages to the section I have already marked with one finger. I read it clearly, evenly, with no added drama, because the words are dramatic enough on their own. "Father of bride, seated row 4. The sound that moves through the room is not quite a gasp. It is something quieter than a gasp and louder than silence, the sound of 200 people understanding something at the same moment. I see faces change. I see the older guests, the ones who have known my father for years, turn to look at Ray, standing at the end of the 4th row with his hand in mine, and I watch the understanding of exactly what was planned for him travel across their faces. Gordon lunges toward the back of the room. He is moving fast and purposeful, directly toward the sound booth in the corner. The sound technician sees Gordon coming and looks immediately toward Caleb. Caleb is standing at the altar. He does not move, does not speak, does not make a single dramatic gesture. He simply shakes his head once, one firm, quiet motion, and holds eye contact with the technician all the way across the length of the room. The technician does not cut the microphone. I continue. I also want to read this line. I look down at the page. No father-daughter dance. The room shifts again. This time the reaction is stronger, whispers spreading across the whole room, people turning to each other, someone near the middle saying something too low to hear, but with an expression that tells me they understand exactly what this means and what it cost my father. I look up from the pages. I look directly at Gordon, who has stopped moving. He understood, somewhere between the sound booth and here, that cutting the mic now would make everything significantly worse than letting me continue. This wasn't an oversight, I say. My voice does not shake at all. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a communication problem or someone being thoughtless on a busy morning. I hold the pages up slightly. This was a plan. A printed, organized, approved plan with categories and signatures and addendum pages put together 3 weeks ago and handed to my wedding planner as instructions for how today would go. Someone in the third row says something under their breath. The person beside them nods slowly. Gordon squares his shoulders. I can see the calculation happening from across the room, the rapid adjusting of strategy that occurs when a carefully built plan fails in public, and the person who built it realizes it. He finds the lever he always finds. He says it loudly. The way you say something when you want the whole room to hear it before anyone can interrupt it. I paid for this wedding. The words land with the confidence of someone who believes money ends every argument. I hold up the contract folder. No. I say simply, you didn't. The room is very, very quiet. My name is on the photographer's contract. Caleb's name is on the venue agreement. My father paid for my dress and for the flowers. I open the folder to the first tabbed section and hold it out so the nearest guests can see the signature line. Every agreement for today has one name on it. I pause. My mother's name. Catherine, in the front row, makes a sound I have never heard from her before. It is not polished or controlled. It is the sound of something breaking open, something held under pressure for a long time finally releasing. She puts her hands over her face. I know the difference with my mother. These are real tears, the kind that come when you see something about your own life clearly for the first time, and the clarity brings both relief and grief at once. I look at her and keep my voice gentle because she is still my mother. You didn't protect me today, I say. You protected his ego, and I think you've known for a long time that those are two very different things. The room stays completely still. Gordon's controlled expression is gone. What has replaced it is something I have seen only a few times, something small and cornered and exposed. He looks at the room, he looks at Catherine's hands over her face, and then he says the thing that makes everything unmistakable. You owe me, Brooke, he says. Then he catches himself. Amelia, you owe me. He called me the wrong name. He called me Brooke. I have never been called Brooke in my entire life. He is rattled, finally, genuinely rattled, and then Reed quietly touches my elbow and holds out his phone. I take Reed's phone. The screen is showing an email thread. The subject line is visible at the top, bold and clear against the white background. It reads, "Remove father or won't release funds." I read the sender's name. Gordon Carlisle. Sent to Jolie's business email address 6 weeks ago. I read the body of the email. It is short and deliberately worded, not obviously threatening if you only read the surface, but when you know the context, when you know what funds he was referencing and what remove father means in the language of a family list, it is not subtle at all. He threatened her business. He used the implied power of money he did not actually have. Money that was not his, that came from accounts belonging to my mother, and he used it to pressure a professional woman into following instructions that would harm my father on my wedding day. He built the whole architecture of today on borrowed authority. Borrowed money. My mother's name, my mother's accounts, my mother's signature on every contract. And he constructed an entire fiction of ownership and control around all of it, held together by the simple fact that no one in the building had stopped to ask whose name was actually on the paperwork. Until today. I look at Gordon. I hold up Reed's phone so that the people nearest the front can see the subject line. My planner was told to remove my father, I say quietly, or she would not be paid. The murmur that goes through the room this time is different. It is not confusion or surprise. It is the specific sound of a group of people whose sympathy has made a final, decisive shift. And then Jolie steps through the side entrance of the ceremony hall and she walks to the center of the room and she begins to speak. Jolie does not speak loudly. She speaks the way professionals speak when they have decided that silence is no longer the right choice. Clearly, steadily, with the kind of composure that comes from someone who has been holding something in for weeks and is finally, carefully, setting it down. She confirms everything. She says she received Gordon's email 6 weeks ago. She says she was told the fund release, the final payment that covers her fees and the remaining vendor costs, would be withheld if she did not follow the family list exactly. She says she tried to raise her concerns with my mother, who told her to do what Gordon wanted. She says she has regretted it every day since. She says she is sorry. The room receives this in silence. Then Gordon does something I should have expected, but didn't. He pivots. When a person like Gordon loses control of the external narrative, they look for internal damage they can cause instead. He turns away from me, away from the guests, and he looks at my mother. "Tell them why I had to do it," he says. "Tell them what your ex-husband is actually like. Tell them what he cost us." His voice is taken on a sharp, pressured edge, the edge that appears when a long-used lever is being pulled one final time. The room feels it. People go still in the specific way that happens when a crowd collectively understands that something genuinely painful is about to happen to someone who doesn't deserve it. Catherine sits in the front row with her hands still pressed together in her lap. She is not looking at Gordon. She is looking at me. And then she looks at my father. At Ray, standing at the end of the fourth row with his crooked tie and his shining eyes. And her face does something I have been waiting my entire adult life to watch it do. It makes a choice. My mother stands up. She does it slowly, the way you stand when the weight of what you are about to say has physical mass. She smooths the front of her dusty rose dress. She turns to face Gordon. And then Catherine Carlyle speaks in front of 200 people with a voice that is small and firm and absolutely unafraid. "You didn't have to do any of this," she says. "You wanted to." Gordon stares at her. "You wanted to," she says again, and this time her voice is steadier. "You have always wanted to. This has never been about protecting me, or protecting Amelia, or protecting anyone in this family. It has been about what you need to feel like you matter. And I have been giving you that for 30 years. The room is completely silent. I paid for this wedding. My daughter and her fiancé paid for this wedding. Ray paid for his daughter's dress. Her voice does not break. Your name is not on a single piece of paper that makes this day real. And that is not an accident. That is the truth of what you contribute." Gordon's face has gone through several expressions in rapid succession. The composed one is long gone. What has replaced it is the expression of a man who has just discovered that the thing he most relied on, the quiet, trained compliance of the person closest to him, has finally run out. He leans close to her. His voice drops to a register the front rows can still hear. "If you do this," he says, "you will be sorry." My mother looks at him for a long, even moment. Then she picks up her small clutch from the seat beside her, and she takes a step away from him. Not dramatic, just a step. Just enough. She walks to my father's row and she stands beside Ray. She says nothing else. She doesn't need to. I stand at the end of the fourth row with my father's hand in mine, and I look at Gordon once more. Just once. Then I let it be finished. "You don't get to call yourself my parent," I say, by erasing one. I hand the contract folder to Caleb, who is standing at the altar watching me with the patient, steady warmth of a man who knew exactly who he was marrying. I take my father's arm. Ray looks at me. His tie is still crooked, and his eyes are wet now. He stopped fighting it the moment his ex-wife came and stood beside him. He says quietly, so only I can hear, "Are you sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything," I say. We walk down the aisle together. The string quartet shifts, without instruction from anyone, into the song I chose 8 months ago for exactly this walk. Someone in the middle section begins clapping softly, and then the whole room joins. Gordon walks out through the side entrance before we reach the altar. No scene, no final word, just a man in a gray suit going through a door and closing it quietly behind him. My mother stays. After the ceremony, Caleb gives a short toast. He thanks me. He thanks my dad by name. He says Ray raised a woman who knows the difference between love and control, and that has made all the difference. My father and I share the father-daughter dance we were not supposed to have. Near the end of the evening, my mother finds me at the edge of the dance floor. She looks lighter than she has looked in years, not happy exactly, but unburdened, like someone who just set down something very heavy and is still learning what it feels like to have her hands empty. She says, "I should have done that a long time ago." I take her hand. "You did it today," I say. "Today is enough."